This is the 46th episode of CloudFocus Weekly for the first week of June 2011. This episode is titled, I Can't Wait for iCloud. CloudFocus Weekly is sponsored by Arkus, cloud computing experts. I'm your host, Jason Atwood, and joining me for the 46th time in the iCloud, who maybe can or cannot wait, I don't know, we'll find out, is Justin Elsing. Justin, how are you doing today?
I can't give my predictions or my how I feel about it because I have no idea what it is.
We'll talk about that in the podcast.
I like how you spelled I can't, lowercase I, capital C.
That's a play on iCloud.
Yeah, I got it.
Here we go. So, rest of the agenda, we're going to talk about your podcast, your circles of trust.
My blog post.
Your blog post. I do it every time. Gonna happen. Talk about iCloud, which will be supposedly announced on Monday. Apple's making some announcements, probably some product announcements, but one of them might be this concept of this iCloud, which we have been waiting for and or talking about and or watching competitors come out with things for months now. So we'll make a few predictions ourselves, maybe. And then we have some leaked photos of database.com, which is more of a joke, but kind of fun because they're doing a webinar tomorrow.
It's not really leaking it if you do it.
I think that's why it's a joke.
Oh, okay.
But they're doing a webinar tomorrow. Showing
that I can't wait for.
I can't wait. And then we have some Google news, of course, and not just the Google with the news product, but news about stuff in Google, including something that references back to one of our previous podcasts about the plus button that we thought was something, and maybe it is something, so we'll talk about that. And then we'll get to our CloudFocus app pick of the weeks, or pound CFAPW.
That rolls right off the tongue.
That does roll. The pounding, I like putting a pound in the Google Wave because it makes no sense.
Good one.
Yeah. So let's start off by talking
That'd be
about
a good enhancement for Google Wave. Pounds, like to link to other Wave, but they're not going to enhance that.
No. I'm still impressed that that after they said they were going to shut it down almost a year ago. Well, no, maybe. It's coming up. I think it was August of last year.
No way.
I think so. That they said they were going to. It's still up and running.
Oh, it still works.
Don't tell them. I'm convinced that they can't figure it out.
They obviously don't listen to our podcast.
They do not. So let's start off with talking about your blog post entitled Social Circles.
Social Circles. So I wrote a post about how I use different personas on different social networking platforms to reach different audiences. So I came up with this concept called the inner circle and the outer circle, whereby I kind of group people based on who they are, if they're a personal friend, a close friend, family, or are they more of a professional acquaintance or networking type of contact, and how I use different platforms for different purposes to reach different people. So, someone like yourself or my mom, they are in the inner circle. I just said, yes, you and my mom.
Wow.
You guys are both in the inner circle, right? You get to be my friend on Facebook. Very proud. You should be very proud of this. You get to see
me and 200 other people.
And 100, no, I don't think I have that many friends on Facebook. Like 150 maybe people.
Okay.
Because I use it as my inner circle. It's not my Twitter. It's not my LinkedIn. I'll get to that in a moment. But you guys get to see, pictures of food that I'm eating in New Orleans, or know about the fact that I'm in New Orleans, or see pictures of my cat Briscoe. Because, no big deal if my inner circle sees pictures of my cat Briscoe. It's more relevant to you in that context. You're my friend, and you're seeing a cute picture of a cat with a sombrero on his head.
Yes.
Right? Saying Happy Cinco de Mayo. Anyway.
Wow.
Yes.
I think you just shared some of your inner circle.
To the outer circle.
I think I just spilled some of my inner circle on my outer circle.
Yes, I did. So I classified Foursquare and Facebook as the inner circle because Facebook's very personal, has, who I'm dating, all those other things. Foursquare is like, where am I all the time? So, as I mentioned in the blog post, sad but true, I'm the mayor of my apartment building, and my outer circle contacts don't need to know that I'm home, or that I'm at the cantina on the corner, or, Juniors for cheesecake, what have you, right? The outer circle, as I coined it, is made up of Twitter connections and LinkedIn connections. And there are other platforms, but I focused on kind of the big four that I use. And these are people that work in my industry, cloud computing experts, people I want to follow for their information, or people that might follow me for my opinions on certain things. But I keep it professional, and I keep it very mindful of the fact that I'm a founder at Arkus, and the way that I come off in that very public light, Twitter very public, is not only a reflection on myself, but also a reflection on my company. So I like to keep it clean and stay on point and stay on topic and make sure that there's no pictures of Briscoe, because they're just not relevant for the public to consume. That's more targeted towards my inner circle of friends. So that's what the blog post is all about. Yeah, now I've just blown the whole thing up.
Yeah, really. Clearly, so
as giving examples.
We were on with a client, talking to a client earlier, and I mentioned your blog post because he used Twitter to tell me he was going to be late for a meeting. So I'm sitting there waiting for him to come on to the WebEx that we use, that I like. You guys go to. We all know this.
We're going to have a podcast dedicated to the WebEx GoToMeeting war.
Yeah, it'll be a short one because WebEx.
My pick will be GoTo. Your pick will be WebEx.
So, and he tweeted me that he was going to be late. So then,
not even a direct message, just a @mention.
Yeah, just a @mention. So, clearly the lines are being thrown all over the place. Now, I don't care because that's my public persona. And I think of it as my professional persona. The inner and outer circles, I more go professional and internal. I agree. I mean, I do the same thing with Facebook. Facebook to me is a very personal thing, and that I want to be able to put up pictures of my kids if I had more than one.
You have more than one?
Who would know? You're in you're in the outer circle.
I thought you only had one.
No, I totally agree. But I also want to have an outside thing that I can share with lots of other people. I have more than one Twitter profile, and there are ones that, because I find I like following people that are focused on a sort of topic. So I follow people under a sort of that are focused on one thing. The people that are all randomly all over the place, that's sort of like, I don't need to hear that. So when I post, I think about, I'm sort of posting to this profile, so I'm sort of moving my content around that profile or around that topic. And so it's more, so my Jason M. Atwood, twitter.com/Jason M. Atwood, is more about cloud computing and technology and geekdom and stuff like that. Less so about my love of sports. So
right.
I follow part of your inner circle. The best part of your blog post was definitely the picture, which is a funny reference where it shows a picture of a circle. It says the inner circle, and then has a little indicator that says you, and the picture's on the outside. So that's
great picture.
Good stuff. So that's at blog.arkusinc.com, where there are...
Check it out.
Yeah, check it. Go there. In other news, we have, I guess, the big thing for next week, if you're looking forward in your calendar of events coming up, is that Monday, the 6th, I think, is the start of WWDC, which is Apple's annual developer conference, which has become more and more...
Worldwide
developer conference. It's become more and more of their showcase to show off their stuff. There's a lot to be talked about. But we're not a podcast just talking about Apple. That could be another podcast, which I'm sure there's 10 of them. So they could be talking about Lion, which I think the story there, if you're going to spin it on a cloud computing thing, is that Lion might be distributed, their new operating system might be distributed solely through the App Store.
And then one of my 2011 predictions is getting even closer,
which is the death of the disk. So, but that's interesting, and maybe new hardware, and maybe iOS 5, and maybe Twitter integration, all sorts of stuff that But the one thing that we've been talking about for a long time, and clearly some competitors have been making moves into, and we talked about Google doing their Google Music, which I'm in the beta, or I'm in the sign up, but I haven't gotten my beta yet.
You and millions of others.
Amazon did their cloud files, which I bought my Lady Gaga album, which didn't work, so I kind of thought, well, that's a fail. Although I'm sure it works now, so love you too, Amazon, because I do. I love them for other reasons. But there's always been this sort of rearing head of what's Apple going to do, right? Because Apple's got iTunes, which is the biggest store. It's making all the headway. They got all the connection to all the devices that everybody wants. What are they going to do with this? And what's this big data center down in North Carolina that they've been building for 2 years, for whatever millions of dollars?
So, I feel like we need creepy music going on in the background.
Yeah, I can't do it. So, over the last week, domain names have been bought, registered for trademarks, and so we all kind of know what it is. It's iCloud. It's going to be called iCloud. It's supposed to be a replacement for Mobile Me, which I think I made as one of my picks somewhere along the way because it's still a very good thing. But there's more and more news coming about it, sort of hints. So is it a version of this software they bought, Lala, which they bought a year ago? I think it's a company which would scan your iTunes library and then basically enable you to stream anywhere, sort of like Pandora, which you like, stream anywhere, but anything that you owned, because it had already sort of seen, Justin owns the latest Milli Vanilli remix album, so he can stream it anywhere he wants.
You're always with the Milli Vanilli.
It's because it's the worst album I can think of.
Let me ask you a question. So this is the developer conference. Might there be some developer style news here mixed in? Because iCloud seems very consumer product-y, right? Like, Lion, sure, that is geared toward developers.
Clearly.
Hey, people who write applications, here's this new OS with all these new APIs and features that you can write to.
iOS 5.
Developers, here's all this new stuff in iOS 5 that you could build into your apps and sell on the App Store. What do you think iCloud's going to have in store for developers? Because this really seems like a consumer type thing, right? Like, hey, consumer, get your files wherever you want.
When the whole world's watching, or when the whole tech news world is watching, you're going to launch some of your stuff. You don't want to leave this to a month later. So while I agree,
I'm pretty sure Apple can announce pretty much anything whenever they want and get a crowd.
They do, but when you're going to bring out Stevie Jobs onto the stage,
that's true.
and you're going to make one of these big announcements, and you're going to do one more thing.
It's going to be a one more thing?
One more thing, definitely. So I'm excited because I'm excited to see how they stack up against these other things. I mean, it's not a huge need of mine. I mean, is this something? I know you use Pandora. You have a huge collection. If you could access your huge collection anytime, anywhere, from any device,
that would be great. I would love it.
But would you stop using Pandora?
No.
Would you do it, or would you not do it at all?
I would do it, totally. I would not stop using Pandora. I would not stop using Netflix streaming, because there's things that I don't own that I want, and Pandora is for me, it's just the great randomizer, right? I don't know what I want, and then Pandora gives it to me, and I'm like, oh, I like that. Or I don't even know this song, but I like it. Like, that's not in my iTunes library. I don't have things in my iTunes library that I don't know. Like, I own it. I bought it. I know it.
Well, there's some random album that I'm sure you didn't
listen
to the whole album.
No, there really isn't.
You've listened to every album you've
found. Not my
song.
iTunes library. I'm not like that. I buy albums. I don't buy singles. I never buy like a single.
What was Milli Vanilli's third song?
I have no idea. I don't really have that album.
Okay.
Thanks for mentioning it. You have it, I'm sure, though. And I'm also one of the I would love it like if I'm in a hotel room. That'd be great. Oh, I have like all this. I have all these movies, like hundreds of them on my Drobo at home. And I have my 32 gig iPad, and I can only fit 8 or 10 of them on here. I would love to be able to get to any of them. Hopefully I can. Music, not as big a deal to me, but the movies, the TV shows, and potentially any other interesting way to get at data that's on my machine without like more seamless integration with like the iDisk, like kind of like how Dropbox is, like just more seamless.
So you think more than just the iTunes integration, they're going to announce more Mobile Me type stuff?
Yeah, I would like more Mobile Me stuff. I would like more seamless integration between my desktop, a web app, and a mobile app. Something that really ties all that stuff together.
Right. And does it well and offline.
Does it really well and offline, right.
I think the thing that for me, I'm an iTunes user. I have tons of content there. I cannot imagine them going through all my CDs that I ripped, and I was a big CD purchaser back in the day, and I've ripped a lot of them. I can't imagine that this thing would then say, okay, anything you ever ripped, because we can't tell if it's yours, like you really owned it and I still have the CD and I can prove it, or your friend came over with his terabyte drive and you have a terabyte.
They're going to have an iPhone app that takes a picture of the
CD
like barcode, and then it authenticates it for you.
It's going to OCR it,
right?
And it's going to
or
be
like a
CD recognition,
bar scan reader thing.
There's bar scans on it.
On
CDs?
the backs. On the backs of CDs.
I threw out all the backs.
Oh, now you're out of luck.
It's not gonna work. But would it push me to buy more stuff into iTunes? Yeah, it kind of would. It's one of the reasons I still have the original Apple TV is because it's a big drive there, and I sync over a bunch of movies, and I leave the house, and then anybody's in my house, aka my daughter who likes to watch Disney movies. They're all there, and I don't have to be there, and they don't have to stream or whatever. So the idea that this thing then could stream all the things that we own and basically act as my cloud media player, I like that.
That would be great if my Apple TV,
of course,
can connect to this thing wherever. Like if I go away, I can take my Apple TV with me and not have to even bring my computer to like connect the iTunes to it, right?
I can't imagine. I brought my Apple TV on vacation once, and what I forgot to bring was the remote, so I couldn't even go to configure it to hit to the Wi-Fi to even connect to it.
Couldn't you use the remote on your phone?
No, because it couldn't see it. You can't tell it to like the remote on my phone.
What I want to do is kind of like I'm going away. I can like leave my laptop, just take my Apple TV and like my iPad, and I'm good to go for a weekend.
But if you have your iPad, you can just plug your iPad into the TV using that connector. You don't have to bring it.
No. Yeah. I don't have that connector. I have my Apple TV.
Yeah. Why would you want to bring like a 1 pound piece of technology versus
it's a little tiny
cable,
little square.
$35
It's
cable.
a little square.
That makes no sense.
It's like a Klondike bar.
What would you do for it? Would you quack like a duck?
Yes.
All right. So your prediction is all the above?
I don't really have a prediction. I don't even know if it's going to happen.
Nice.
My prediction is it won't happen.
That's great.
And there, if I'm right on that, then everyone will.
So something
not
that we
happy.
did predict, or that's kind of getting easy to predict now, is that Salesforce announces stuff, and then many months later, you get to see it. And then many months later, they re-announce it, and then many months later, it actually comes out.
Right.
So I think we're in the second many months now, so we're getting to see database.com, which was announced last December at Dreamforce 10.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, right at Dreamforce.
Yeah, they announced it literally that day, and so I guess they've leaked some photos, which is funny, and they're doing a big webinar tomorrow, which if you're not signed up for...
Tomorrow being Friday, June 3rd.
They're going to do a webinar and show off, I guess, a sneak peek of database.com.
I can't wait to see the sneak peek. I want to see if it has a front end.
It's got to have a front end. It's not going to be command line the whole thing.
No. I can see from the leaked photos that it has a front end to build the schema of the database.
Okay.
Right? Like it looks just like Salesforce, right? When you look at the screenshots,
yep.
It's like got the system, the setup stuff on the left. It's got customized create, right? Probably create objects, workflow rules, Apex triggers, etc. That front end exists. I want to know what the forms look like. The front end, the user interface for the end user to enter stuff into the database. Or is this really just a database with no front end form entry and you put whatever front end you want on it? Like I don't see necessarily, like I see things like Apex triggers, Apex classes, workflow rules. I don't see Visual Force pages. Like I mean,
yeah,
we'll
but underneath some of these app setup and administrate, it looks like there's customize and create and develop.
Right, so, but we don't know if there's page layouts. Like, I wouldn't then understand the differentiation between database.com and force.com. I'm interested. I'm intrigued. I want to see what it is.
Yeah.
Well, I really like the second screenshot of, like, seeing, like, sort of like the entity view.
Like your pick of the week last week.
Yeah, and you can see like kind of like the fields and the IDs and how they connect to each other. You can export it looks like. You can print it, so you can print like a data diagram.
Yeah, I don't think it's good. I mean, I don't know. I think the way the model for the business model for the pay as you go, the whole point is that it's not going to have a front end. That everything you want to do is connected through some other source.
So it's the database with APIs.
And what they'll do is say, but you know what the greatest set of APIs to get to it is, and the greatest front end you could ever put on front of database.com? It's called force.com.
Right.
And you can build this thing, and it'll connect like with your clicks and build a little form, and then say backend data equals I'm sorry, database.com. Need some water.
Yeah, you take some water. I don't necessarily get where this is going to go. I mean,
DabbleDB.
Well, DabbleDB still needed an end user facing front end to input data. That would be force.com. You wouldn't go buy database.com, then sort of build your own front end. You would.
Why not?
Well, why wouldn't you then just get force.com and use Visual Force pages? Like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me from that perspective. And maybe I'm just not seeing it. And maybe I'll see it tomorrow. Like, I'll get what they're talking about. Maybe the Toyota Friend thing is like an example of some app written on database.com using, PHP and all sorts of fun jazzy stuff to make the interface look a little different for the end user. We shall see tomorrow.
We shall see. I can't wait. I'm a little bit more excited for WWDC. Just saying.
Me too.
So
it should be decent.
We got 2 pieces of Google news, and then we'll get to our CloudFocus app picks of the week.
Do it.
Which is basically the mystery has been solved. Google has released their +1 button, or +1, which is something.
I've been in the experiment for a while, so my search results have had +1 next to it for a long while,
explain to the.
So in my search results,
Google search results.
Yep. Clearly, we're talking about Google, not my Bing results.
You never know.
My Google results.
Could be.
Next to every link is a little +1 button that I can click. And it was never necessarily all that clear to me, like, what I was doing. I was just saying, this is the right answer for this query, I guess. Before I click it, I'll say +1. It wasn't really all that clear to me. You can +1 ads, which makes even less sense to me. But, you can say, I guess, this one is the one. And now apparently you'll be able, webmasters, for lack of a better word, website owners will be able to put a +1 button on their website, much like the Facebook like or the Twitter button.
Yep.
Dig buttons from the past, like all those circa 2006 dig button, all that stuff. More stuff to slow blogs down. Right. There'll be a button that you can press and click, and it will add it to your Google profile, which to me is sort of a mystery, because I don't think Google does a very good job of explaining to you where that data that you're giving them is going, right? Like my Google profile, I'm not even 100% sure. I would probably just go to Google and type in Google profile and then get to my Google profile. I don't know what it would say about me, what it would do. I'm also a Google Apps user for our Arkus domain. I don't think +1 and that profile, I don't think they connect. So it's one of those mystery things that Google's rolled out to proliferate around the web, collect a bunch of data probably, people +1ing websites, make them more popular or less popular, do a query, land on a website, hit +1. They know that, okay, you've landed on a website and you've said it's kind of the right result for that question.
I think this is clearly their fire, the start of their fire back on social network, right? Because one of the things that's become very clear in the shift, and I think even Benioff put this up on one of his speeches, is that people now do shopping search, do product comparison, product search more and more through social networks, aka Facebook, and less through traditional search. Because the theory being, if I want to find out if who has a great pancake mix.
Well, we had a real example of this just last week, and you and I were talking about it. Remember, I was looking for a video capture software for a Mac that would do a screen capture in a video format of my screen, so that I can do a demo video.
Right.
And
something we'll be announcing soon.
My first reaction was go to Twitter, ask a question.
Right.
Question: who has used good screen capture video software for a Mac? And within 3 minutes, I got 4 or 5 responses from people from my outer circle telling me what software to take a look at. And you were like, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just go to Google and type in Mac screen sharing software?
Wait, I didn't say that immediately. I said, oh, that's a great way of asking, but did you also go and search? Because to me, while that is a good way, you're only asking 20 people or 300 people that follow you, or the millions of others that are going to respond that quickly. And really, my guess is there are other informed people who have done reviews of and have looked over tons of them.
The point is, not to get into a tizzy about which way was the right way to go or wrong way. There was no wrong way. I used that method, right? I didn't do what Google wants me to do. I went and asked my outer circle on Twitter, hey, what's the right thing to do here? Whereas Google would say, well, why would you do that? Just go to Google, type in screen capture software Mac, and we'll get you what you need to know.
And what they're saying is, okay, great. Yesterday we would have given you results, right? So here's screen capture, here's one, and here's your 10 results, right? Top 10 results on page 1 of Google
with
search
some
results.
Sponsors and whatnot.
But now we're going to show you top 10 results, but then next to 2 of them, you're going to see Jason liked this, right? Like this one, and he liked this article on it. Or Jason and this other person. So your outer circle is now going to be integrated into your search results.
And that's what I never really get with Google, is how they connect the fact that I should see the things that Jason has +1, and I don't see things that Bobby Boberson has +1.
Right. Or Sally Salerson. So you're right. And in Facebook, it's very clear. A friend of mine is someone I like, and I've already connected with them. In Twitter, it's very clear. I'm either following someone or not. It's more public. In Google, it's like, how is this connection being made?
Are these my Gmail contacts? Are these my Google Reader people who are following my shared items?
Is it your Buzz
Are these
friends?
my Buzz people?
It's unclear.
It's never too clear with Google.
And it's the missing piece. It's the piece that they haven't sort of made very clear, is that what is my Google profile and how does it connect to these other people? Whereas these other sites are so very specific, Google is so spread out, like AdSense and so many different things. When I log in, sometimes I'm like, oh, where am, and then I see in the top, oh, I'm logged into Google. It's interesting. It's going to be, I like it.
And I can't even do it right now because I'm always logged in as me at Arkus.
Your outer circle search profile.
It doesn't exist.
Right.
So I can't, I'm on the Google Enterprise blog right now, and there's a +1 button, and when I click it, it goes to do the +1, and then it says, oops, you need a Google profile to use this feature, and it's not available for my organization. So I'm not ever really, I'm going to have a special browser that I only use for personal use or something like that. Maybe that's something I'll write a blog post about one day.
Flock, I think, called it quits.
Or just Firefox. I never use Firefox, so that'll be my personal browser.
Speaking of personal browsers, and speaking of browsers, here's your segue of the day.
That was a good segue. I did that purposely.
Yeah, you wish.
Yeah, I do.
Google has announced that it will be...
Well, they announced their plans to support modern browsers across Google Apps. So they announced that they're going to be, or their plan for how they're going to move forward with their web apps and how they're going to support browsers. So they've announced, in order to keep up with, and move past traditional software, we need to use modern web browsers. Otherwise, the experience is not going to be ideal.
Right.
So in order to do things like drag and drop, in order to do things like notifications in Gmail, things like what Google Wave does, right? Real-time kind of interaction. They require advanced browsers that support HTML5, and older browsers just don't cut it for them. So they've announced that beginning the 1st of August, so you have a couple months to prepare for this if you're an enterprise, they're going to discontinue support for the following browsers, and I'll explain why, but they're going to discontinue support for the following and their predecessors. So Firefox 3.5, Internet Explorer 7, which is actually a big one, and Safari 3. And what they're saying is we're going to support the current and prior major releases of Chrome, Firefox, IE, and Safari on a rolling basis. So right now IE is up to IE 9.
Right.
So they're going to support
IE 9 out?
Yeah, I believe it is.
Fully out.
So they're going to support IE 9 and IE 8. Safari's on Safari 5, so they're going to support Safari 5, Safari 4.
So as I pointed out to you at lunch, this is so funny not eating your own dog food, because Google Chrome literally goes from version to version monthly. So they're on version 11. They were on 10 2 months ago.
12.
Who knows? So if anybody else held Google Chrome to that standard of like, oh, we'll only support the last 2, that'd only be 2 months worth of development.
But Google updates itself. Chrome updates itself for you.
So does Firefox now. Firefox just updated me to 5 the other day.
Well, that's kind of the thing is you won't ever be on like 2 versions prior of Chrome. You shouldn't, because when it starts up, it doesn't even ask you.
You could turn it off. You can say don't do that. It's one of the things. But if you're in an enterprise, you have no choice.
If you're in an enterprise, you're likely not using Chrome as your like main browser. You're likely using Internet Explorer. And at this point, you're probably on IE7, maybe IE8. Some big shops, places that shall continue to remain nameless,
never be named,
are likely still on IE6. But yeah, this is an interesting stance that Google's taking. They're saying, hey, we're not supporting all these browsers because we're moving forward. We're building stuff in modern technologies, and these older browsers that we have to like hack through and put in special code for, we're just not bothering with that. So upgrade or lose functionality.
Listen, the browser is becoming less and less of what it was meant to be, or was originally designed to be, which is this thing to to look at text marked up as HTML, and it's becoming the gateway to applications. It's becoming an application environment. It's becoming a JVM, Java Virtual Machine, right? It's becoming the thing that you run applications written in HTML5 and JavaScript. And so this has always been the problem with browsers, is that the standards aren't standards, that no one really adheres to them, although it's getting better and better, that the organizations out there that are making the standards are kind of disparate, and that there are big companies that control huge markets of the segment who decide to make up their own standards as they go. And those companies should not be named either. Microsoft has always been known as the company, we'll go build our own tags, our own HTML tags, because we feel like it. I like it from a Google standpoint. I like it from a pushing it forward. It's amazing to see the kind of stuff you can do in a browser. To think that, I used to write code, HTML that could do writing my table code. I was so impressed I could get things to show up in columns, and now you can literally do full applications, games, Angry Birds written in HTML5, stunning stuff. So good to them. I just think it's a weird thing to say this version and that version, because each browser doesn't handle that. They update at different intervals, and they might have completely different sets.
I don't know if the blog post said full versions, but I don't know if that means like Safari 5 has been the most recent right, if you're looking at the most recent Safari versions, 5 and 4 have been out for a year and a half. Like,
more so, I
maybe
think.
even more.
Yeah.
Like Safari 4 was like 2 years ago, maybe, right? So like they don't update that browser with major releases. They have dot releases all the time, but to have a full major release, that could be 2 years worth of. And Internet Explorer is certainly not, marching forward at a pace, of light, light speed or whatever, the speed of light. So interesting how they've taken this stance, and how they plan on supporting browsers moving forward.
Yeah, I was just looking. I was trying to find the browser timelines. I found a very old one, but showing the different releases of Safari. But it looks like it's not current enough. Well, it does go Opera up to 9. Oh, Opera 9 came out in June.
They didn't even mention Opera in their supported browsers.
Too bad for Opera.
Too bad.
All right, so let's go to our CloudFocus app pick of the week. You go first.
I will. This is an app that I downloaded a long, long time ago, never really used, got updated recently, so it showed up in my, this is an iPhone app, so it showed up in my, in the App Store as a badge, click, oh, there's an update. Let me go play with that again.
Right.
And I found it to be extremely useful. The app is Dragon Dictation, which by Nuance Communications. And Dragon it's on a lot of different platforms, and it does a lot of different dictation type things. What I love about it is that it has integration with Facebook. It has integration with Twitter. You can SMS from it. You can send emails to it. And it's the simplest app you've ever seen. You click the app, it opens, and there's a screen with a record button. It has nothing else, just a button. Yeah. Tap to dictate. You tap the button, you talk into the phone, talk into the speaker, the microphone, whatever, and when you stop talking, you can hit stop, or there's a setting that it'll recognize when you're done, and boom, there's the text right on the screen. And it does a really good job of speech to text.
Does it send it up to get verified, or does it do it right in your...
It does it right there.
You sure?
I'm very sure, because it happens so fast. I can't imagine it sending it anywhere and bringing it back.
Because I've heard that most of these send it away because the processing power to do it. So they record the sample, and they're usually tiny samples. They send them up, they get done by a cloud computing something, and then sent back down.
Maybe it's doing it that way. I don't know.
Okay.
It didn't seem to have been doing it. I mean, it was happening so fast that I couldn't imagine it was doing it.
Yeah, the
sending
test
it anywhere and bringing it back.
The test would just be turned into airplane mode and see if it'll work.
Yeah. And then, there's a button on the bottom. There's two buttons. You can either hit the keyboard button, which will allow you to, modify any of the text if it got something spelled wrong, or if it, if it got some of the words, like I said CloudFocus yesterday. I was testing it to send a tweet, and it put CloudFocus as two different words, and we have it as one word, so I was able to modify that. And then there's a button, like the action button, like what do you want to do? And you can send it to Twitter, you can send it an SMS, you can compose an email, you can do all sorts of things with it without having to type. Really very useful tool.
Nice.
And I'm going to continue using it. I really liked it.
So I can now tweet while I drive.
Yeah, totally.
Excellent. Can you tell it in with your voice what to send it to?
I could not figure that part out.
Okay. That would be neat.
Free, by the way.
Free is good. Voice recognition seems like it's the flying cars of computer technology, which is we've always thought that at some point we won't have keyboards, we'll just talk to our computers, and yet for the last 20 years it still hasn't really it's really not built into operating systems. It's kind of works on the iPhone, call or play, song by, kind of fun, but I don't know, it just had never taken off as much as I thought it was going to be. If you'd asked me 10 years ago...
Well, there's sync in a car.
Yeah.
And supposedly it's pretty decent.
I've heard it's pretty good. But it's still like small commands. It's not dictation of full things or really interacting with your computer.
That'd be really
100%.
hard.
Yeah,
I want to just think things that I would be doing on my computer and have the computer just be like, yes, your wish is my command.
Your computer would crash at your thoughts.
Like I'm just thinking, compose this email to Jason and write something in it, and it does all that stuff.
It would be interesting because your thought patterns are so literally the way you think, and then squirrel, and then all of a sudden in the middle of the sentence is squirrel.
Cone of shame.
Yeah. So all right, so I'm going to make a quick pick because we're kind of running out of time here, but it is for something that I think is a neat little addition into the world of Kindle. So if you're a Kindle user, you like reading books, one of the problems with Kindle has been for a long time that you buy books, and if I buy a hardcover book, I can hand it to someone else and they can use it and they can read it. Now, that's sort of the nice thing about books. Well, Kindle, you get the book, but you can't really lend it to anybody else. Amazon eventually, I think a couple months ago, maybe 6 months ago, added the ability to lend books. But it's kind of a little bit difficult, and you have to lend it. You can only lend it once, and it really only allows you to lend it sort of to someone you kind of know. Well, here comes Lendl.me, Lendl.me, which is a online service / website that allows you to both upload the books you have, or to say I have these 10 books in my Kindle collection, and then someone else can ask to borrow them. And then there's a fee associated. I couldn't get too far into where the fee goes. Is it them? Is it? But basically, you get to read the Kindle book for less money than if you had to go buy it yourself. Limitations are that you obviously can only read it in the time period that Kindle allows you to read it, which is 2 weeks. So you only have 14 days. And as a lender, you only get to lend something once, which is a limitation of Kindle as well. It's a nice workaround. It's a nice way of, sort of bridging the gap of what should be a much easier system. I never really understood how some systems allow you to kind of install things with 5 computers and do all that, but Kindle has this sort of weird backwards. You can't just quickly, easily say, oh yeah, you can have it or whatever. But anyway, Lendl.me is a first step in letting you both lend books to others or put out things you want to. So you can actually put a list of books I'm looking for, and if they show up, it'll tell you, and you can go and say, can I borrow that book from that other person, making it more affordable to read Kindle books, which is good, so we can stop cutting down trees to make real books. So that's it. That's the end of the CloudFocus Weekly for this week. Again, if you want to read the blog posts, they're at blog.arkusinc.com, ARKUSINC.com. You can subscribe there in the oldest standard in news reading, which is RSS. If you want to follow the tweets of us here, you can follow the company at twitter.com/ArkusInc. You can
be in the outer circle.
If you want to be in the outer circle. Everybody in the Arkus Inc. Twitter is in the inner circle. And if you want to follow my outer, inner, middle Earth circle, you can go to twitter.com/JasonMAtwood. And then Justin here, you will clearly be in his outer circle. He's now even told you that in a blog post.
I'm telling you.
That you are not in his inner circle.
That's okay.
That if
come on, that's
is there any benefit to being in your outer circle?
Yeah, you don't have to see pictures of me eating barbecue and sauce all over my face and stuff.
Actually, if you follow me, I will post every picture of him eating barbecue. I'll post it to my outer circle, therefore breaking his circle and his circle of trust.
You're breaking the infinite loop.
At twitter.com/JustEdelstein. And then we're on the company's on Facebook, facebook.com/ArkusInc. You can follow us there. It's great because we actually post things, the blog posts and the podcast show up on Facebook page. But if you're really interested in subscribing to the podcast and knowing about it and knowing when it comes out, because we record at different times, it is go into iTunes, type in CloudFocus Weekly or CloudFocus, hit subscribe, and then every time we post it, it'll come magically through the clouds down to you. Although next week there could be a whole different way of listening, who knows, to podcasts, and maybe we'll have to update that whole system.
Oh, you know what? That would be great if they did that.
Syncing of podcasts through the devices as opposed to through iTunes would be much better.
That would be phenomenal.
So there you go. There's something you actually want. I want it. Until next week, and as always, enjoy those cloudy days.